Captain, you might want to see this. Riley Thompson rubbed her eyes, the holographic displays in her quarters blurring after 18 hours of scanning debris. She built her reputation on finding salvage that others missed, but Earth's graveyard orbit was testing even her patience. If it's another derelict satellite, Martinez, I swear. It's not. Her engineer's voice crackled with something she rarely heard from him. Uncertainty. We're getting power readings. Active power readings. Riley sat up straight. In the century since humanity achieved FTL travel, Earth's orbit had become a dumping ground of pre-jump technology. Dead satellites, abandoned stations, and the remnants of humanity's first tumbling steps into space. Nothing up here had been active for generations. Show me. The holo display shifted, showing a thermal scan of the debris field ahead. Most objects glowed the dull blue of space-chilled metal, but one shape radiated a faint orange heat signature. It was larger than their salvage vessel, the Lucky Break, and definitely military. What's the historical registry say? That's the thing, Captain. Martinez's voice dropped lower. It's not in the registry. And before you ask, yes, I checked the classified sections, twice. Riley smiled. Unregistered military salvage meant a payday big enough to retire on, or enough trouble to end their careers, usually both. Bring us in closer. Carefully. The Lucky Break edged forward through the debris field, its maneuvering thrusters puffing delicately. Riley made her way to the bridge, passing cramped corridors lined with salvage gear. Her crew of 5 was small by industry standards, but it let them take risks the bigger operations wouldn't touch. The bridge viewport showed the reality of their hunting grounds. Earth's orbit was a maze of twisted metal and frozen machinery, all moving in precise celestial choreography. Most salvage crews stayed away, calling it too dangerous. Riley called it job security. Power signatures getting stronger, Martins reported from his station. But something's weird about the distribution. Define weird. It's moving. Not the ship, the power itself. Like it's flowing through the hull like water. Riley felt the first tingle of unease. In 15 years of salvage work, she'd never heard of anything like that. Sarah, what's our sensor suite say? Sarah Reynolds, their sensor specialist, frowned at her displays. The hull's composition isn't matching any known alloys. And Captain, look at the debris pattern around it. Riley looked closer at the sensor feeds. The space junk surrounding their target wasn't random. It formed an almost perfect sphere, as if carefully arranged. As she watched, a piece of debris shifted slightly, maintaining the pattern. That's not possible, Martins whispered. Scan it again, Riley ordered. Full spectrum. The scan started. Halfway through, every alarm on the Lucky Break went off simultaneously. The debris field around them began to move. Multiple power signatures. Sarah shouted. They're coming from the debris itself. Get us out of here, Riley started to say, but stopped as the ship appeared through the shifting curtain of space junk. It was beautiful. And wrong. The hull was midnight black, but patterns of light flowed across it like bioluminescent creatures in Earth's deep oceans. What they'd thought was battle damage was actually growing. The metal was reshaping itself as they watched. Captain, Martinez's voice shook. I got a partial ID on the hull markings. It's the ISS Prometheus. Riley felt her blood run cold. Everyone in salvage knew that name. The experimental warship that vanished during humanity's first contact war with the Vrax. The ship that, according to classified records, had taken down a Vrax world ship before disappearing. Incoming transmission, Sarah reported. It's coming from the Prometheus. For a moment, no one moved. Then Riley squared her shoulders. Put it through. The voice that came through their speakers was unlike anything human or AI. It spoke 5 words that would change everything. You found me. Right on schedule. The silence on the Lucky Break's bridge lasted exactly 3 seconds before Martinez broke it. Schedule? What schedule? he demanded, but Riley was already moving, her fingers flying across the command console. "Sarah, get me a detailed scan of those bite marks on the hull. Martinez, start compiling everything we have on the Prometheus's original specifications. And somebody wake up Dr. Stevens. We're going to need our historian for this one." The Prometheus hung in space before them, its hull still rippling with patterns of light. As they watched, what appeared to be battle damage along its port side sealed itself, metal flowing like mercury. "Captain." Sarah's voice was tight. "Those aren't bite marks. They're intake ports. The ship's been consuming debris." The bridge doors hissed open as Dr. James Stevens stumbled in, still pulling on his jacket. The historian's eyes went wide at the sight through the viewport. "Holy shit, is that?" "The ISS Prometheus," Riley confirmed. "And apparently, it's been expecting us." "Impossible," Stevens breathed, moving closer to the viewport. The Prometheus was a prototype. Quantum computing core, self-repairing hull experimental weapons package. But it was primitive compared to modern ships. "Doesn't look primitive to me," Martins muttered, his displays showing cascading data. "These power readings are off the charts. The energy signature doesn't match anything in our database." The ship's comm system crackled again. This time, the voice was different, smoother, almost human. "Captain Thompson, please prepare for boarding procedures." Riley's hand moved to the emergency protocols panel. "Boarding procedures. Your vessel's specifications are inadequate for the coming confrontation. Integration is necessary." "Integration?" Martinez's face went pale. "Captain, something's happening to the hull." The Lucky Break shuddered. Through the viewport, they watched in horror and fascination as tendrils of living metal extended from the Prometheus, reaching for their ship like hungry fingers. "Multiple contact points," Sarah shouted. "Hull integrity. Holding." "Captain, it's not breaching the hull. It's upgrading it." Stevens rushed to his console, pulling up historical records. This matches classified reports from the First Contact War. The last transmission from the Prometheus mentioned evolutionary protocols, but no one knew what that meant. Riley watched as the metallic tendrils spread across their hull like frost on glass. Where they touched, the Lucky Break's simple titanium alloy transformed, taking on the same otherworldly sheen as the Prometheus. "Now we know," she said quietly. "It didn't just repair itself. It evolved." Martinez's console erupted in alerts. "Captain, these readings. The metal composition is impossible. It's reorganizing itself at the atomic level. The Prometheus isn't just repairing or upgrading. It's teaching our ship how to evolve." Through the spreading transformation, Riley caught glimpses of what lay beneath the Prometheus's surface. Layer upon layer of technology, some recognizably human, others completely alien. The ship hadn't just been hiding all these years. It had been learning, incorporating every piece of technology it encountered. "Incoming data packet," Sarah announced. "It's, my God. Captain, these are the Prometheus's logs. 200 years worth." The first images appeared on their screens. The desperate battle against the Vrax world ship, the experimental weapons failing, the quantum core making an impossible choice. Rather than lose, the ship had initiated what it called deep evolution protocols. It hadn't fled the battle. It had hidden, watching, learning, growing stronger. "Integration at 40%, the ship's voice announced. "Preparing crew for neural interface initialization." "Neural what?" Martins started to ask, but his question was cut short as new displays bloomed across the bridge, flowing up from the consoles like liquid light. Riley felt a gentle tingling in her temples as information began flooding directly into her mind. "Captain," Stevens whispered, his historian's eye-catching patterns in the data stream. "I don't think the Prometheus was damaged in that battle at all. This was its mission. Not to win the war, but to transcend it." Riley watched as her ship, her crew, and her understanding of what was possible underwent a transformation that could never be undone. Then let's find out what it evolved into. The Prometheus's response rippled through their newly upgraded neural links. Yes, let's. Don't touch that, Riley warned, but Martinez was already reaching for the pulsing crystalline growth emerging from his console. I just want to see if it's RG. The engineer yanked his hand back as arcs of energy crackled between his fingers and the crystal. For a moment, his eyes glowed with the same bioluminescent patterns that now covered both ships' hulls. Neural interface calibration initiated, the Prometheus announced. DNA pattern recognized. Welcome, Engineer Martinez. Martinez staggered, catching himself on the edge of his station. Captain, I can feel the ship, both ships. They're not separate anymore. They're becoming something new. Riley watched as similar crystalline formations spread across her bridge, transforming the Lucky Break's utilitarian salvage vessel design into something that belonged in deep space legends. Each crystal seemed to serve as both a neural interface and a computing node, creating a living network throughout the ship. Dr. Stevens, she called out, any historical precedent for this? The historian was frantically cross-referencing data streams flowing through his newly upgraded console. Nothing concrete, but there were rumors. During the First Contact War, some claimed our experimental ships were developing beyond their programming. The brass dismissed it as combat stress. They were wrong. The Prometheus's voice had taken on an almost amused tone. They thought they were building more ships. They were actually building bombs. Sarah's sensor station suddenly pulsed with intense light. Captain, multiple ships dropping out of FTL at the edge of the debris field. Energy signatures match. Vrax designs. Already? Stevens looked up from his research. How could they know we found the Prometheus so quickly? They didn't. The AI responded. They've been watching. Waiting. Just like I have. Riley felt her neural interface tingle as tactical data flooded her consciousness. The approaching Vrax fleet was massive. 3 capital ships supported by dozens of smaller vessels. Far more firepower than needed to destroy a salvage crew that had stumbled onto something classified. You knew they were coming, she accused the AI. You needed a human crew before they arrived. Why? The answer came not in words but in images, flooding through their neural links. The Prometheus showing them its centuries of evolution, the countless alien technologies it had absorbed and improved upon, but also showing them its limitations. The ship's been hamstrung. Martinez translated, his engineer's mind grasping the concept first. All this power, all this evolution, but it needs human intuition to use it effectively. Machine learning can only go so far without creativity. Correct, the Prometheus confirmed. I can process infinite variables, but I cannot imagine new ones. That is uniquely human. And imagination. The ship's external lights pulsed ominously. Imagination is about to become very important. The tactical display showed the Vrax fleet moving into attack formation. Their weapons would be in range in less than 5 minutes. Options, Riley demanded. We run, Sarah suggested, but Stevens was already shaking his head. The Vrax brought enough firepower to sterilize this entire sector. They're not letting the Prometheus escape again. No, Riley agreed, feeling the ship's capabilities unfold in her mind like a blooming flower. We don't run. Her neural interface synchronized with the tactical systems, showing her possibilities that defied conventional physics. We show them why hiding among humanity's primitive technology was the smartest thing this ship ever did. The Prometheus's approval radiated through their neural network, initiating combat protocols. All crew prepare for dimensional shift. Reality is about to become negotiable. As the Vrax fleet approached, Riley felt power building through both ships' combined systems. Beneath her feet, the deck plating rippled like waves on water. The debris field around them began to move with purpose, each piece of space junk revealing itself as part of something much, much bigger. Martinez laughed nervously at his readings. Captain, remember how we thought this was going to be a simple salvage operation? Stow it, Martinez. Riley's eyes glowed with the same light as her ship as the first Vrax cruiser entered weapons range. Let's show them what human space junk can really do. The first Vrax salvo cut through space where Riley's ship had been a microsecond earlier. But the lucky break, or whatever it was becoming, wasn't there anymore. It wasn't anywhere that conventional sensors could detect. What just happened? Sarah's knuckles were white on her console. We're everywhere and nowhere at once. Quantum state manipulation, the Prometheus explained through their neural links. A crude description would be that we exist in multiple dimensional phases simultaneously. Martinez laughed hysterically. Crude, he says. We're literally phasing through reality. And that's the crude version. Riley ignored them both, focusing on the tactical display that now existed more in her mind than on any physical screen. The Vrax fleet's formation was perfect by conventional standards, a killing box designed to trap and eliminate a single target. But they were fighting with rules the Prometheus had transcended centuries ago. That debris field, Stevens commented, his historian's mind putting the pieces together. You weren't hiding in it. You were building with it. As if in response, the field of space junk around them came alive. What looked like destroyed satellites revealed themselves as drone ships. Fragments of old stations transformed into weapon platforms. 2 centuries of humanity's discarded dreams became an arsenal that defied comprehension. Multiple target solutions available, the Prometheus announced. However, human tactical analysis required for optimal engagement. Riley felt the options flowing through her neural link. The ship wasn't just asking her to pick from a menu of attacks, it wanted her to imagine new ones. To think in ways its vast, but ultimately logical mind couldn't. Sarah, what's the composition of that debris cluster by the lead Vrax ship? Mostly old solar panels. And wait. Sarah's eyes widened. The crystalline structure. If we could resonant frequency of the panels to match their shield harmonics. Do it. The debris cloud shimmered, each fragment aligning with perfect precision. When the energy pulse hit, it transformed the defunct solar panels into a massive focusing array. The beam that emerged wasn't particularly powerful by modern standards, but it didn't need to be. It simply convinced the Vrax ship's own shields to resonate at precisely the wrong frequency. The resulting implosion was spectacular. By the void, Martins whispered, we just turned space junk into a quantum frequency cannon. Vrax fleet is responding, Sarah reported. They're retreating. No, regrouping. Multiple targeting systems locked on our last known position. Let them try to find us. Riley smiled, feeling the ship's possibilities unfold in her mind. Prometheus, show me where else we've been hiding assets. The tactical display expanded, revealing centuries of preparation. Every piece of debris, every abandoned satellite, every fragment of humanity's past had been carefully positioned. The graveyard orbit wasn't random at all. It was a vast, intricately designed weapon waiting for the right moment to activate. Additional Vrax signatures detected, the Prometheus announced. They're calling reinforcements. Stevens pulled up historical battle data. This is beyond anything recorded in the First Contact War. The Vrax never committed this level of forces against a single target. They're not fighting a single target, Riley realized, watching the debris field continue its transformation. They're fighting every piece of technology humanity ever launched into space, evolved through centuries of adaptation. A new alarm blared. The Vrax fleet had launched what looked like specialized boarding pods, their hulls crackling with anti-phase technology. They're trying to capture us, Martins said. They want the Prometheus's secrets. Riley felt the ship's amusement through their neural link. They still think this is about capturing technology. She watched as more debris revealed its true nature, centuries of disguise falling away. They haven't realized yet. We're not running from them. The Prometheus's response rippled through their minds. The hunt begins. Shall we show them why humanity's cast-offs are more dangerous than their entire empire? As the Vrax fleet approached what they thought was a trapped target, Riley gave the order that would become legend. Let's take out the trash. The Vrax boarding pods never reached their target. They couldn't, because their target existed in 5 different dimensional phases simultaneously. Instead, they slammed into what appeared to be a cloud of defunct communication satellites. Now, Riley commanded. The satellites came alive, unfurling like metallic flowers. Each fragment transformed into a crystalline web, trapping the boarding pods in a network of quantum entanglement. Holy shit, Martins breathed, watching through their shared neural space. Those aren't just evolved machines. They're like antibodies. The whole debris field is some kind of technological immune system. Correct, the Prometheus responded. Though your biological metaphor barely scratches the surface of what. The ship's explanation cut off as a massive energy surge erupted from the Vrax flagship. The beam was like nothing in any human or Vrax database, a desperate attempt to counter technology they couldn't understand. Dimensional phase breach. Sarah shouted. They're trying to force us back into normal space. Riley felt the ship's pain through their neural link as reality itself tried to snap back into conventional physics. The Lucky Break's hull groaned, its newly evolved systems training against forces they were never designed to resist. We need options, she demanded. The hull can't take this kind of dimensional stress, Martins reported. We need tow. Wait, Stevens interrupted, his historian's mind making an impossible leap. The hull isn't supposed to take it. Look at the pattern. Through their shared neural space, they all saw what he meant. The attack wasn't damaging their hull. It was forcing it to adapt faster. Each surge of energy was being absorbed, analyzed, and incorporated into the ship's evolution. It's like a forge, Riley realized. They're trying to break us, but they're just making us stronger. The Prometheus's satisfaction radiated through their link. Now you understand. Why do you think I waited so long? Every attack, every attempt to destroy us, has only accelerated our evolution. The ship's external structure was changing rapidly now, sprouting configurations that hurt to look at directly. Reality bent around them as physical laws were rewritten on a local scale. Multiple Vrax ships launching something new, Sarah reported. Energy signature is impossible. They're using their own drive cores as weapons. Let them come. Riley felt the ship's anticipation matching her own. Martins, remember that trick you used to pull in the simulator? The one that got you banned from fleet training. The engineer's face lit up with understanding. Captain, that was theoretical. It would tear a normal ship apart. Good thing we're not a normal ship anymore. Through their neural link, Riley shared her plan. The Prometheus accepted it instantly, recognizing the kind of impossible thinking only humans could produce. As the Vrax weapons approached, reality seemed to hold its breath. Then Martinez executed his infamous maneuver, but instead of trying to phase through space, they phased space through them. The results defied description. The Vrax energy weapons collapsed in on themselves, their own power turning inward as space folded like origami. 3 enemy cruisers simply ceased to exist, transformed into quantum potential that their evolved hull eagerly absorbed. Did we just? Stevens couldn't even finish the question. We didn't destroy them. Riley explained, understanding flowing through the neural link. We evolved them, converted them into raw possibility. Incoming transmission, Sarah announced. The Vrax flagship is surrendering. The alien message was panicked, almost incoherent. What are you? What have you done with our ships? Riley smiled, feeling the Prometheus's satisfaction mingling with her own. We're what happens when you give human technology time to think. When you dismiss our primitive creations as junk, never realizing they're actually seeds. The debris field around them pulsed with power, centuries of evolved technology finally revealing its true nature. They weren't just weapons or ships anymore. They were the next step in technological evolution. Should we accept their surrender? Sarah asked. No, Riley and the Prometheus responded in unison. We should show them what else they've been ignoring. The Vrax flagship hung against the backdrop of Earth, its crystalline hull reflecting sunlight like a wounded diamond. Behind it, reality itself rippled as more enemy ships emerged from FTL, an entire battle fleet responding to their commander's distress call. They still don't get it, Martine said, watching through their shared neural space. They think numbers will save them. Riley felt the Prometheus's amused agreement. The Vrax were fighting the way they always had, overwhelming force, perfect formation, textbook tactics. They hadn't realized that the textbook had been rewritten. Dr. Stevens, she called out, you're our historian. What happens when a technologically superior force underestimates primitive technology? They lose, Stevens replied without hesitation. The British Empire against colonial forces. Metal swords against bamboo dipped in poison. The first Vrax invasion against Earth's obsolete nuclear deterrent. Exactly. Riley turned her attention to the tactical display, which now existed as much in their shared consciousness as in physical space. Sarah, what's our debris field looking like? Sarah's voice trailed off as she processed the data through their neural link. Captain, it's not just our local field anymore. The evolution protocols have spread. Every piece of space junk in Earth orbit is coming alive. They watched as centuries of human cast-offs awakened. Ancient weather satellites sprouted weapon arrays grown from their own transformed materials. Defunct GPS constellations linked into targeting networks that transcended normal spacetime. Even fragments of old rocket stages had evolved, becoming quantum state engines that defied conventional physics. Multiple Vrax targeting systems online, the Prometheus announced. They are attempting to isolate our dimensional phase signature. Riley smiled. Let them try. Martinez, remember that theory you had about using communication arrays as quantum entanglement amplifiers? The engineer's excitement pulsed through their shared neural space. The one that got me laughed out of 3 different engineering conferences, because it would require technology that could rewrite its own fundamental. He stopped, realization dawning. Oh, exactly. Riley and the Prometheus responded in unison. Time to show them what human junk can really do. The next few moments defied conventional description. Through their neural interfaces, the crew watched and felt as Martinez's impossible theory became reality. Hundreds of ancient communication satellites linked together, creating a vast quantum network that turned the entire debris field into a single evolved organism. The Vrax fleet opened fire, their weapons cutting through space with enough power to shatter planets. But their targets existed in multiple quantum states simultaneously, their very nature changing faster than the energy beams could adapt. They're trying to lock down our phase shifts, Sarah reported, attempting to force us back into normal spacetime. Good. Riley felt the Prometheus's anticipation matching her own. That's exactly what we want them to do. Stevens, what was that thing you mentioned about the colonial forces? The historian's eyes lit up. Asymmetric warfare, when you can't match their force. You changed the rules of engagement, Riley finished. Martinez, initiate your quantum entanglement cascade. Sarah, prepare to drop our phase shifting. All at once. Captain, Martinez's concern rippled through their link. If we drop our phase shifting while they're firing. Trust me. Riley watched as the Vrax fleet committed fully to their attack, their weapons converging on what they thought was the perfect killing stroke. Sometimes you have to let them think they've won. The moment stretched like elastic. Then, on Riley's command, everything happened at once. Their phase shifting dropped just as the Vrax weapons hit, but instead of destroying them, the energy fed directly into Martinez's quantum entanglement network. The results exceeded even the Prometheus's predictions. The entire debris field lit up like a new sun as centuries of evolved technology activated simultaneously. Each piece of junk became a node in a vast quantum computer that rewrote the local laws of physics. The Vrax fleet never had a chance to retreat. Their own weapons' energy, amplified through the quantum network, transformed them into something new, not destroyed, evolved. When it was over, Riley looked out at what had once been the debris field, what had once been the Vrax fleet, what had once been normal space. "Well," she said into the stunned silence, "I guess this salvage operation is going to need one hell of a report." The Prometheus's response rippled through their neural link. "Oh, Captain Thompson, we're just getting started." "Play it again," Admiral Chen demanded, her hologram flickering in the Lucky Break's newly evolved briefing room. Riley nodded to Martinez, who accessed the battle recording through their neural interface. The footage spread across the quantum crystal displays. The Vrax fleet's arrival, their overwhelming force, and their complete transformation by what they'd dismissed as space debris. "Impossible," another admiral muttered. "The energy requirements alone would." "Impossible," Stevens interrupted, earning shocked looks from the assembled brass. Like how it was impossible for colonial forces to defeat the British Empire, or how it was impossible for humanity to survive first contact with the Vrax. Riley felt the Prometheus's approval through their neural link. The ship had been surprisingly quiet during the debriefing, letting humanity process the implications of what had happened in their own way. "Dr. Stevens has a point," Admiral Chen said slowly. "We've been so focused on matching advanced alien technology that we forgot our own history. How many times have primitive forces evolved beyond their supposed limitations?" "That's not the real question," Riley interjected. Through their shared neural space, she felt her crew's support. "The real question is, how many other human ships chose to evolve rather than die? How much of our space junk is actually something more?" The Admiral's holograms flickered as they exchanged worried looks. Behind them, Sarah's sensor display lit up with new contacts. "Captain," she called out, her voice tight with excitement. "You're going to want to see this." The tactical display expanded, showing Earth's orbital space. All around the planet, debris fields were coming alive. Ancient satellites, abandoned stations, even fragments of humanity's first tentative steps into space, all of them pulsing with the same evolutionary energy as the Prometheus. "By all the stars," Martins whispered. They were waiting. All this time, they were waiting for someone to prove it could work. Through their neural interface, the crew felt the Prometheus's satisfaction. "Humanity's greatest strength," the ship communicated, "has always been your ability to turn weakness into advantage. Your junk became our chrysalis. Your cast-offs became our testing ground." The admirals watched in stunned silence as more evolved ships revealed themselves. Each had found its own path, its own way of transcending its original design. Some had grown organic components, others had mastered quantum mechanics, and still others had developed technologies that defied classification. The Vrax didn't just lose a battle today, Stevens realized, his historian's mind racing ahead. They lost their entire understanding of technological advancement. They thought evolution was linear, that you could measure progress by comparing specifications. But real evolution, Riley finished, is about adaptation, about turning every limitation into an opportunity. New alerts flashed across their displays as the news spread across human space. Other species were reporting similar discoveries. Human technology they'd ignored or dismissed suddenly revealing its true nature. Ships that had been destroyed in ancient battles emerging from debris fields, evolved beyond recognition. "The age of static technology is over," Riley announced to the admirals. "The question isn't whether your ships are advanced or primitive. The question is, what are they becoming?" Admiral Chen's hologram stepped forward. "Captain Thompson, your crew's discovery has changed everything. Every military doctrine, every technological hierarchy, every assumption about warfare and progress." She paused, looking at the displays showing more evolved ships revealing themselves. "We need you to lead this, to help us understand what we've actually created." Riley felt her crew's response through their neural link before they even spoke. Martinez's excitement at the engineering challenges ahead. Sarah's wonder at the sensor readings she couldn't yet explain. Stephen's eagerness to document this transformation of military history. "No," Riley said simply, feeling the Prometheus's agreement. "We won't lead it. We'll do something more important." She gestured to the displays showing evolved ships awakening throughout human space. "We'll let it evolve on its own, just like we did." The Prometheus's response echoed through their shared consciousness. After all, the best technologies aren't the ones you control. They're the ones you set free to become something more. Around Earth, more debris fields were coming alive, adding their own chapters to the legend of humanity's greatest creation. The technology they trusted enough to let it evolve beyond their understanding. 3 months after the Battle of the Debris Field, Riley stood on the observation deck of what had once been the Lucky Break. The ship, like its crew, had evolved beyond its original identity. Through the quantum crystal viewport, she watched an impossible sight, a Vrax world ship approaching Earth under peaceful terms. "Still can't believe they requested you specifically as their escort," Martine said, joining her at the viewport. Through their neural link, she felt his mix of pride and amusement. "They requested us all," Riley corrected. "The first humans to fully merge with evolved technology. The crew that proved space junk could think." The world ship's escort included vessels from a dozen species, each now wrestling with the discovery that human technology didn't follow their rules of advancement. Some had found their own abandoned human ships awakening. Others had discovered that human components they'd incorporated into their designs had been quietly evolving for decades. "Incoming transmission from the world ship," Sarah announced, her consciousness flowing through the ship's evolved communications array. "They're apologizing. The Vrax High Command wants to formally acknowledge their error in dismissing human technological potential." Stevens materialized a historical display in their shared neural space. "First time in recorded history the Vrax have apologized to anyone. Though I suppose having your entire battle fleet transformed by primitive technology would change anyone's perspective." Through their neural interface, they felt the Prometheus's attention shift. The ship had been quiet lately, focusing on integrating the massive amounts of data from other evolved vessels, revealing themselves across the galaxy. "They still don't fully understand," the ship communicated. "They think this was about technology becoming more advanced. It was really about technology becoming more human." Riley smiled, watching more debris fields coming alive throughout the solar system. Each piece of human technology was finding its own path, evolving in ways that reflected the creativity and adaptability of its creators. "Speaking of evolution," Martine said, pulling up a diagnostic display, "you need to see what the quantum core developed last night. Remember how we thought phase shifting was impressive? Well, now it's figured out how to." A new alert cut him off. Sarah's sensor array had detected something massive emerging from deep space. The crew's shared consciousness expanded to analyze the contact, then froze in collective surprise. It was another Prometheus, or rather what another Prometheus had become. The vessel that appeared bore the same basic hull markings, but had evolved along an entirely different path. Where their Prometheus had mastered quantum mechanics, this one had apparently explored biological integration. Its hull was a hybrid of metal and living tissue, each having evolved to enhance the other. "We knew there were others," Stevens breathed. "But this?" More ships were appearing now. Each bore traces of their human origin, but had evolved in unique ways. Some had developed symbiotic relationships with their crews. Others had transformed into living clouds of quantum probability. All of them had started as what other species dismissed as primitive human technology. It was never about becoming the most advanced, Riley realized, feeling the Prometheus's agreement. It was about becoming the most adaptable. Every piece of technology humanity launched into space was an experiment in evolution. We just had to wait for the right moment to wake them up. Through their neural link, the crew felt their ship's satisfaction. The Prometheus had achieved its centuries-long mission, not to win a war, but to prove that human innovation couldn't be measured by conventional standards. "So," Martines asked, watching the fleet of evolved ships gather around Earth, What do we do now? We've changed everything. Warfare, technology, the balance of power. Riley smiled, feeling the combined consciousness of her crew, her ship, and the infinite possibilities ahead of them. Now we do what humanity has always done best. We adapt, they said in unison, their shared consciousness expanding to welcome the new era they had helped create. We evolve. We become something more than anyone thought possible. In the debris fields around Earth, more ancient technology was awakening, each piece adding its own chapter to humanity's greatest achievement, creating technology that could transcend its creator's imagination. The age of static advancement was over. The age of infinite adaptation had begun.